Hi again then guys, and so we've got another special projects replica build for you today, and this time it's for a pretty cool car that we're trying to replicate, the, as far as I'm aware, most powerful production muscle car ever made, alongside its twin, obviously, the Charger, but it is of course the Challenger SRT Hellcat, and we are basing this replica on the only available in-game version of the new Challenger, the Challenger SRT8. Now, of course, there are some differences between this car and the car that we're aiming for. Obviously, visually, there are some differences to the front end primarily. The real car has an 8-speed gearbox, whereas this has a 6, etc. But this is still a very accurate representation of what a Challenger Hellcat could be like if it was on the game. So as always, I'll show you guys first of all what I've done to get the visual look of the car, and in the case of this car it is mostly down to personal preference with the visuals, because obviously it's available in a wide variety of colours in real life. And then we'll go to the garage for the more important thing, which is of course the mechanical setup, and then finally out to the track to see how it performs. Now, as far as the visuals, we've gone for the Type A body kit option, which of course gives you this enlarged front chin splitter. There is no flat floor on this particular model. For the rear wing, we've just left the available wing on the car. For the rims, there are kind of two different rims that you could go for, the LMR or the REMG, which are both a similar style, but of the two, the MG is slightly more accurate to the real car's rims, but again, you could go for the other ones if you choose to. I haven't gone for any additional meters on this one. As far as the paint, as I said before, you can really put it up to personal preference here, but I've gone for pearlescent colours, and I really wanted a strong, rich, almost cherry red. And the colour that I went for is this Misano Red Pearl Effect, which is a really strong, deep red, and being pearlescent, it obviously catches your eye more than, say, metallic or solid. And that comes from the Audi RS4. You can also get it from the RS6. But obviously, as I said, the Challenger is available in a wide variety of colours, lime green, silver, black, etc. As far as the rims, we've gone for metallic colours. And again, black is black is black, so you can pretty much choose whichever one you want. But I've gone for Moonraker Black, which I believe comes from one of the Merc models. But like I said, it doesn't really matter which black you use, because many of the blacks on the game, metallic or solid colours, look very similar. As far as the brakes, I'm not sure if the actual car is available with yellow brakes. I've just done that again from personal preference. But the colour that I've gone for to really, not clash, but to really set off the red bodywork is Imola Yellow, which again actually comes from the Audi RS4. But again, you can go purely for personal preference. You could go for black brakes, you could colour code them to the body, purely down to personal preference. So now let's go over to the garage for the more important thing, which is of course the mechanical setup of this car. So, as we said before, the actual car does have some differences, of course, such as an 8-speed gearbox, slightly different torque output, and a larger engine. This is a 6.1, whereas the Hellcat is a 6.2, etc. But in terms of sheer specs, horsepower, weight distribution, it's actually pretty much spot on the real car. So we've gone for sport soft tyres. Obviously that's personal preference, but this is a street-based replica, so I've just gone for sport soft to increase the fun factor. For suspension, we've got the ride height relatively high on 125 front and rear, but it really sits right at that height. Springs we've increased a little to 10 and 750. Dampers dampers I should say, we've left stock on 3, just to make it more like a street car, because you don't want it to be too stiff, because it's not a racing machine at the end of the day. Anti-roll we've increased slightly to 4. Camber quite low on 1, again to keep up the fun factor, but give it a good amount of stance. Obviously it's not a stanced car, but if you put it to 0 it looks kind of weird. The wheels are a bit too flush with the bodywork. Neutral toe as always. For the gearbox we've got an auto setting of 205. Then we've rounded off the gears to 3.9, 2.6, 1880, 1430, 1150 and 960 with a final drive of 3. For the diff, we've gone for the highest initial torque to increase wheel spin to make it more fun, high acceleration and low braking. As far as the power, there are a variety of ways of getting the 707 horsepower of the real car. In my case, I've decided to keep the stock exhaust. I tried all 4, but the stock sounds by far the best and the most similar to the actual Hellcat. It has that deep rumble that you want from the car. We've got the Stage 3 engine tune, exhaust manifold and cat, intake tuning, and of course the supercharger. And it does also have an oil change, and then we've reduced the power down to 98.4%. As far as the weight, we do not have any of the weight loss, and we've got a 145 kilo ballast to bring us up to the real weight of the actual SRT Hellcat, which is a very heavy car at 2,023 kilos, so over 2 tons. And we've put that to 32% towards the front, which gives us a weight distribution of 57.43. Now, as far as the weight and the weight distribution, those are probably the most points of contention on this car, because various sources quote different weights and different distributions. But as far as I can remember, I think I went for what Dodge themselves, or SRT themselves, quoted. So again, there's room for manoeuvrability depending on who you quote there, but that's what I've gone for. So that's the mechanical setup of the car. So now let's finally take it out to the track to see how it drives. Now, in terms of just how fun this car is to drive, it really lives up to the Hellcat, which is, of course, a fun car. It is big and heavy, but it's got so much power and so much torque to play with that it's just a great car in real life. It's widely loved, and, of course, one of the most powerful, if not the most powerful muscle car, or production muscle cars, and one of the most powerful production cars in general. On the game, it's not surprisingly not the best in terms of lap times or being necessarily competitive in racing, but that's not what this tune's designed for. It's designed just to be as accurate a representation of the car that we can get on the game without having the actual car, and also to be as fun as possible to drive, and that it certainly is. The performance is very similar to the real Hellcat. Top speed wise, it's not that far off. Acceleration is quicker on the game, as all of the cars are quicker than they are in real life. Handling wise, it's fairly easy to drive actually. It's easy to drift, which isn't surprising, and it handles very well for a 2-ton vehicle. It handles amazingly well actually for such a heavy car. But as I said, above all, it's designed to be fun to drive. So if you guys find this fun to drive, I'd appreciate feedback if you do choose to use this tune. If there's maybe something you would have done differently, again, feel free to say in the comments. And for those of you who do decide to use it, I hope you find it fun to drive. So that's it for this build. I'll see you guys next time, and as always, thanks for watching.